At the stroke of midnight, Amelia Okafor's body twisted and contorted, transforming into something dark and sinister. Her eyes glowed a fierce red as she prowled the darkened hallways of her tenant's compound. Once a woman, now a black cat, she silently slipped into one tenant's room, her presence unseen but unmistakable. Every month, a life had to be taken, a sacrifice for her children's success, and tonight, another soul would pay the price. When the deed was done, she would return to her bed, her human form once again. No one would suspect the horror she carried within. By morning, the compound would erupt in whispers. One tenant would be found dead. No signs of violence, no struggle, just gone. The others would gather, murmuring in fear and disbelief, unsure of who would be next. Amelia Okafor sat by the window of her small dimly lit living room, gazing out of the dilapidated building that had once been a symbol of her family's stability. The Face Me and Face You apartment complex, inherited from her late father-in-law, was nothing but an aging shell of the life she and her husband Victor had built. The tenants came and went, the rents barely enough to keep the roof over their heads. Yet, when Victor had been alive, they managed, barely, but they managed. Now, with his sudden death a few months ago, everything has changed. She ran her fingers over the worn fabric of her chair, feeling the weight of her responsibilities on her shoulders. She had 2 children, Chike and Gochi, and all she wanted was to see them succeed, to have a future that Victor had once dreamed of for them. But that dream seemed more distant with each passing day. The money from the tenant's house wasn't enough to feed them, let alone send them to the good schools she had always promised them. She could feel their potential slipping away, and it filled her with growing sense of dread. One afternoon, as she walked to the market, her heart heavy with worry, she bumped into an old friend, Mamuju. They exchanged greetings, their voices rising above the clamor of the busy streets. "Amelia, how are you?" Mamuju asked, her voice soft and filled with concern. "I'm managing," Amelia replied, her voice a little too tired. "But it's been hard, Mamuju. Ever since Victor passed, I don't know how to make ends meet. The tenant's rent barely covers the bills, and I can't provide the future my children deserve." Mamuju's eyes narrowed, as if she had been expecting such words. She placed a hand on Amelia's arm, her voice lowering to a whisper. "Meet me at my apartment tomorrow night. I can help you. I know someone who can give you what you want, what you truly need." Amelia's heart skipped a beat. She didn't know what Mamuju meant, but the desperation in her voice pushed her to agree. "I'll come," she said, her curiosity growing. The next evening, under the cover of darkness, Amelia arrived at Mamuju's apartment. Mamuju was waiting, her eyes glittering with something unknown. Without a word, she led Amelia through a narrow alleyway, past shadowy figures, until they reached an old weathered temple that seemed to pulse with an ancient energy. "Where are we going?" Amelia asked, her voice trembling as the chill of the night air wrapped around her. "You'll see," Mamuju replied cryptically, her smile unreadable. They entered the temple, where the flickering light of candles cast long shadows on the walls. Around the room, women of all ages stood in a circle, their faces shrouded in mystery. Amelia's pulse quickened. She could feel the weight of their eyes on her, each one studying her with a strange intensity. Suddenly, a voice echoed from the center of the room. "Welcome, Amelia Okafor," the voice called out, smooth and commanding. "You are in the right place." Amelia's breath caught in her throat. The woman who spoke was dressed in a flowy black robe, her face obscured by a dark veil. She stepped forward with an air of authority, her presence as overwhelming as the room itself. "I am Queen Agnes, leader of this witch coven," the woman said, her voice both gentle and terrifying. "We know what you seek, Amelia. You seek a way to make your children successful. Amelia was stunned. How do you know my name? She stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. Queen Agnes let out a low, rich laugh that echoed through the temple, sending a shiver down Amelia's spine. I know many things, Amelia, more than you can imagine. I know your heart aches for your children. I know the sacrifices you're willing to make to ensure their future. Amelia's knees felt weak. You know that I want my children to be successful. I want them to go to a good school. I want them to have the future that Victor and I dreamed of. You want the impossible, Queen Agnes said, her eyes gleaming with an unsettling confidence. But we can make it possible. I will grant you your heart desires. I will make your children successful beyond measure. But in return, you must make a sacrifice. One life every month. You will take the life of one tenant from your apartment complex. Amelia's heart thundered in her chest. What do you mean? How will I? The price is simple, Queen Agnes interrupted, her voice cool and deliberate. Every month, you will turn into a black cat at midnight. You will slip into the room of one of your tenants and attack them spiritually. They will die in their sleep of a spiritual attack. Their soul will belong to us. In return, your children will rise to the height of success. But you, Amelia, will never know the luxuries of their success. You will remain there in that house forever. Your children may give you things, but you will never leave that place. Amelia stood frozen, her mind racing. But why can't I enjoy their success? Why must I stay there forever? She asked, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. Queen Agnes' mouth widened. Because you have made a deal. The magic comes with a price. You will be tied to that house. You will be the keeper of their souls, the one who brings them success. But in doing so, you must live in the shadows. You will always be a part of that place, and no one will question why. Just tell them you are attached to the house, and they will understand. Amelia's mind spun. She had dreamed of a life for her children, a life filled with possibilities, but the cost of that life, was it too much? Could she really sacrifice one life every month, knowing the innocent blood that would be spilled? Her heart ached as she thought of her children, Chike with his boundless energy and curiosity, Ugochi, her thoughtful, quiet girl. She wanted to give them everything, and in this moment, everything seemed so close. I agree, she said, her voice barely audible. I'll do it. I'll make the sacrifice. I will give you what you want. Queen Agnes smiled, and the women around her began to chant softly, their voices blending together in an eerie rhythmic sound. Amelia felt a cold chill settle deep within her bones. She had made her choice. You have made the right decision, Queen Agnes said, her voice the last thing Amelia heard before everything went black. Amelia stood in front of her small crumbling home, her heart soaring with pride. Her children had done it. Chike had earned a scholarship to study engineering in Europe, and Ugochi had won a scholarship for art at one of the best universities abroad. The impossible had happened. Queen Agnes had kept her word, and her children were on their way to achieving everything she had ever dreamed for them. She prepared a grand meal that evening, filling their tiny kitchen with the smell of fried fish, jollof rice, and freshly baked plantains. The sounds of her children laughing and talking excitedly about their future filled the house. For the first time in months, Amelia felt a sense of peace. Her sacrifices were paying off. Her children would have everything they had ever wanted, and they would never have to suffer the way she had. That night, as the clock struck midnight, Amelia felt the familiar pull of the curse. The dark magic whispered to her, and she let it consume her. Her body contorted and twisted as she turned into the sleek black cat, her eyes glowing a vibrant red. Her transformation was always unsettling, but tonight, there was something else in the air, a feeling of satisfaction, perhaps even relief, that she had kept her end of the bargain. With quiet steps, the black cat slipped through the house, moving like a shadow in the night. She knew her target well, Mama Ada, an elderly tenant who had always been kind, always greeted Amelia with a smile, was fast asleep in her room. She had no idea the terrible fate that awaited her. Amelia crept into the room, the air thick with the tension of what was about to happen. The red glow of her eyes flickered in the darkness, and a low growl escaped her throat. Mama Ada, restless in her sleep, tossed and turned, unaware of the terror creeping closer. The cat's presence was suffocating, its eyes piercing, like the weight of the world itself. Mama Ada's body trembled as if caught in a dream. And then the attack came. A strange invisible force enveloped her, suffocating the life from her. Her chest heaved, her breathing labored, but she could not scream. The dark magic, the spiritual attack was too powerful. With a final gasp, Mama Ada's body went still. Amelia, in her feline form, watched coldly. Her mission was complete. The pact had been fulfilled. The soul of one more tenant had been claimed. Her life offered up as payment for her children's success. Once the deed was done, the cat slinked away, returning to the shadows. Amelia's body contorted once again, and she transformed back into her human form. She smiled, a twisted satisfaction settling deep in her chest. Mission accomplished. That night, she climbed into her bed, sleeping under the warm blankets as if nothing had happened. She closed her eyes, the weight of the curse settling on her once more, and drifted off to sleep. The next morning, chaos erupted. Ada, Mama Ada's daughter, burst into the compound, her wails of grief echoing through the quiet morning. Amelia startled from her sleep, rushed out of the house. Her heart twisted with false sympathy as she saw Ada, her face contorted with sorrow. Ada, what happened? Amelia asked, feigning confusion and concern. Ada, her face red and tear-streaked, clutched her mother's lifeless body in her arms. "It's my mother, Aunt Amelia," she cried. "She didn't wake up this morning. She's gone." Amelia gasped, her hands trembling with the pretense of shock. "Oh no, Ada! How could this happen? Your mother was such a good woman." She held Ada in a warm embrace, her voice full of fake empathy. "I'm so sorry, Ada. This is such a terrible tragedy. But don't worry, my dear. It is not the end of the world. You'll find a way to move on." Ada, too caught up in her grief, accepted the comforting words. "Thank you, Aunt Amelia. I don't know what to do." Amelia, her heart cold beneath the surface, whispered again, "It's okay. We'll get through this. You'll be okay. Don't worry." Little did Ada know, the woman comforting her was the very one who had ended her mother's life. Amelia's smile remained hidden behind the tears she shed for the mourning daughter. Inside, she felt no remorse, only a strange sense of relief. Amelia's nightly ritual continued with chilling regularity. As the days and months passed, her children's life flourished. Chike excelled in his studies, his work gaining recognition in Europe. Ugochi's art was displayed in galleries, and her name spread across the art world like wildfire. The scholarship they had earned allowed them to thrive in ways Amelia could never have imagined, and every victory was one she savored. Yet, as Amelia's children rose, the tenant in her house began to fall. The deaths were always mysterious, always so sudden. One tenant would be found dead in their sleep, with no signs of struggle. The next tenant, another seemingly natural death. Amelia's dark transformation at night had become routine, but it was also beginning to attract attention. More and more people started to whisper. The deaths in the building were too frequent, too strange. Tenants began moving out in fear. Yet, even though the compound was losing residents, new tenants moved in, lured by the ridiculously low rent prices that Amelia offered. She didn't care. The cheap rent was the perfect way to get fresh victims for the next sacrifice, and the more people came, the more souls she could collect for her children's future. The air in the compound grew heavy with unease. Neighbors would exchange nervous glances, speaking in hushed tones, but no one could pinpoint the source of the deaths. Amelia kept her smile in place, playing the role of the concerned landlady to perfection. The constant deaths began to take their toll. Some tenants moved away, Others simply disappeared, no longer wanting to live under the shadow of the mysterious killings. Yet, the new tenants kept coming, unaware of the horrors they were about to face. Amelia paid no mind to the growing fear. Her children were thriving, and as long as she kept her end of the bargain, she was willing to do whatever it took. The deaths, the fear, they were worth it. Every soul claimed, every life taken was just another step towards securing the future of her children. But she could feel the tension building like a storm on the horizon. People were starting to ask questions, but no one dared to confront Amelia. The price of success was becoming too high to ignore. How much longer could she keep up the charade? How many more lives would she have to take before the darkness claimed her entirely? Each night, as the moon rose high, Amelia would once again become the black cat, the harbinger of death, and fulfill her dark pact. With each soul she claimed, she knew she was one step closer to losing herself entirely. Amelia had never imagined that her children's success would ever reach such heights. Chike and Ugochi were no longer just bright young talents. They had become some of the most powerful, influential figures in the country. Chike had made a name for himself as a visionary entrepreneur, while Ugochi, with her striking acts, was now a renowned figure in the global art scene. The world knew their names, and they were loved and admired by many. But despite their wealth and influence, one thing never changed: Amelia's refusal to leave the small, crumbling house where she had lived with Victor, the house that was once the heart of their humble family. Her children, now living in luxurious mansions, tried everything they could to convince her to leave the decaying building behind, to join them in the lavish homes they had bought with the wealth they had earned. "Mom," Chike pleaded one afternoon, his brow furrowed in frustration, "you have given everything to us. Don't you think it's time for you to enjoy the fruit of our labor? You deserve more than this shell of a house. We have a mansion now, and we want you with us." But Amelia would shake her head, her eyes distant. "I'm attached to this house, Chike. It holds so many memories of your father. I can't leave. I don't need more than this." Ugochi, her daughter, stepped in, trying to change her mind. "Mom, you can still keep the memories of Dad, but you don't have to live in this decaying house. You have suffered long enough for us. We want to spoil you now, give you the life you've always dreamed of." Amelia's refusal remained unwavering. "This house is where we built our lives, and I can't let go of it. I won't." But as the months went by, whispers began to spread. Chike and Ugochi had become incredibly successful, their names frequently in the papers, their wealth becoming the talk of the town. Yet, their mother still lived in that crumbling shell of a house. The contrast was too striking to ignore. People began to gossip. How could Amelia's children be so rich, and yet she still lived in that rundown building? And then, there were the deaths. The tenants in the house had continued to die mysteriously, one by one. Every month, at least, one would be found dead. No illness, no struggle, just gone. The rumors had started to swirl around the compound. What was going on in that house? The mysteries were too many to ignore, but no one dared ask Amelia directly, for she had become a figure of respect in her own right. The mother of such successful children must surely be a woman of strength, perhaps one who knew something others didn't. Still, in the shadows, the whispers grew louder. It was then that Chike and Ugochi began to worry. They didn't understand. Why would their mother refuse to leave the house? Why wouldn't she enjoy the success they had worked so hard for? Frustrated, Ugochi and Chike decided to take matters into their own hands. They knew that Amelia's attachment to the house and the memories of their late father was what kept her from leaving. But they had a plan to change that, one that would make it impossible for her to go back. "We need to get her out of that house," Chike said one evening, his voice filled with determination. "She won't live on her own, but if we show her how much we want her with us, how much she deserves to live in a better place, she will have no choice." "I agree," Ugochi said, her voice calm but firm. "Let's take her out of that place. Make her feel special. We'll spoil her. Show her what she's missing. She will never want to go back." The plan was set. Chike and Ugochi decided to take their mother out for a shopping spree, something they knew she would never deny. Amelia, though hesitant, had always struggled with accepting the luxurious gifts her children had offered her, but she couldn't resist the chance to buy herself new things, to feel like she could belong in their world. They picked her up in their luxury car, and with smiles plastered on their faces, they assured her that it was just a small treat. But what Amelia didn't know was that this was all part of their bigger plan. They drove for what seemed like hours, and as they turned down to a quiet street, Amelia gasped. A large gleaming mansion stood before her, its lights bright and welcoming. "Where are we?" Amelia asked, confusion crossing her face. "What is all this?" Ugochi smiled softly, but there was a gleam of excitement in her eyes. "Surprise, Mom! This is your new home." Amelia's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean, my new home?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I don't understand." Chike stepped forward, his face serious now. "We have worked so hard, Mom. You have sacrificed everything for us. You deserve to live in luxury, in comfort. This is where you belong now. We want you to stay with us, here in this mansion. You have been too attached to that old house, too attached to memories that are holding you back. It's time for you to let go." Amelia's words seemed to tilt. She couldn't breathe. She had always known her children wanted the best for her, but this was too much. She looked at Ugochi, then at Chike, her voice shaking. "No, you can't do this. You don't know what you have done. You don't understand. This is wrong. Oh my goodness. What is going to happen now?" But Ugochi pressed on, her smile cold now. "We have made up our minds, Mom. You are staying here with us. You are not going back to that house anymore. You have given us everything, and now it's our turn to give to you." Amelia's heart raced. She stood frozen, caught between the life she had known and the one her children were forcing on her. "Please," she whispered, tears beginning to fall. "You don't understand, my children. I can't stay here. I need to leave. I need to go back right now." But Ugochi stepped forward, blocking the door. "No, Mom, you are staying. It is time for you to move on. You'll see. You'll be happy here. We'll make you so happy." That night, as Amelia lay in a soft, unfamiliar bed in the mansion, her mind raced. She couldn't sleep. Something was wrong. Her children didn't know what they had done, but she did. The pact she had made with Queen Agnes, the witch's coven, had been broken. She had defied the order. At midnight, the witch's voice came louder than ever, echoing through the mansion. "Amelia!" The voice thundered. "You have defiled the order of things. You must pay for your disobedience. You have broken the pact, and now you shall bear the consequences." Amelia shot up in bed, her heart pounding in her chest. Her body trembled, her mind swirling in panic. "Queen Agnes, please forgive me. I didn't know what they had planned for me. I'll leave. I'll go back. Just please." But the voice of Queen Agnes was cold and unforgiving. "It is too late. You have defiled the order. You will bear the consequences of your actions, Amelia. You shall pay." And with that, the voice disappeared into the silence of the night, leaving Amelia kneeling by the side of the bed, weeping in terror. She knew the price for defying the witch's coven was always steep. But what could she do now? Her children, Chike and Ugochi, had no idea what they had just set in motion, and Amelia feared it was too late to undo the damage. Before dawn, Amelia's footsteps echoed through the quiet street as she fled from her children's mansion, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and dread. She couldn't stay. The witch's warning reverberated in her mind, and the guilt of defying the order of things weighed heavy on her chest. She had to return to the only place she knew, her home, the house that had once been full of memories with her late husband. It was the only place she felt tethered to, the only place she felt she still had control. But as she neared the compound, something felt different. There were a palpable unease in the air, an undercurrent of tension that made the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. She didn't know why, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something was stirring in her tenant's apartment. Nkechi had been watching, worrying about the deaths that seemed to haunt the compound. She had heard the whispers and felt the unease every time she walked past the apartment doors. One by one, her neighbors were dying mysteriously, their bodies found in the same way, with no signs of violence or struggle. The deaths had become too frequent to ignore, and the fear had begun to sink deep into her bones. She wasn't wealthy enough to move out, and she couldn't stand the thought of her own family becoming the next victims. That's when she decided to take action. She didn't know what to do, but she knew something had to be done. She needed help, and so she invited a pastor, a man known for his ability to deal with spiritual matters, to come and pray for the compound. The pastor arrived in the early morning, his face solemn but resolute. As he stepped onto the compound, his presence seemed to shift the air. He was ready to confront whatever darkness was lurking here. And just as he began his prayers, Amelia walked into the compound, her eyes widened in shock as she saw the pastor standing in her yard. Nkechi stood beside him, looking both nervous and defiant. "What is this?" Amelia demanded, her voice sharp with anger. "Who are you and what are you doing in my compound?" Nkechi stepped forward, her face apologetic but determined. "I'm sorry, Mama Ugochi, but the deaths are too much. Every month, someone dies, and I can't just sit back and wait for it to happen to me. I invited this pastor to pray for us, to ask for protection, so that we can understand what is happening to us. It's like we're all just waiting for our turn." Amelia's face twisted with fury. Her hands balled into fists as she took a step closer to Nkechi. "How dare you bring a stranger into my compound without asking me first? Do you think you own this place?" she shouted, her voice laced with contempt. "Do you think your father built this house? I am your landlady, and you will not bring some random person into my compound without my permission. Get him out of here now before I do something you will regret." Nkechi flinched, but the pastor remained calm, stepping forward with quiet authority. "No, Nkechi," the pastor said firmly. "You do not need to say anything else. I have been called here to break the chains that bind this place. The devil is a liar, and today we are going to expose whatever witches and wizards are taking the lives of innocent people. Whether the devil likes it or not, we will uncover the truth." Amelia's eyes blazed with fury. "You have no idea what you're dealing with," she hissed. "You are not going to ruin my compound with your prayers." But as the pastor began to pray, a sudden sharp pain pierced through Amelia's body. It started in her chest and spread outward like an intense burning fire. She staggered backward, her breath catching in her throat as the pain intensified. She screamed, clutching at her chest. "Fire! Fire! Something's burning me! Please, make it stop! Please!" she cried, the burning sensation engulfing her. The pastor continued praying, his voice rising in authority. "The evil that is here must be exposed. The truth must come out." Amelia fell to her knees, writhing in agony, as if the very core of her being was being scorched. She could feel her soul burning. "Please!" she gasped between screams. "I will confess! I will confess! Please make the fire stop! Please! Make it stop!" Meanwhile, in Ugochi and Chike's mansion, disaster struck with the same suddenness that had rocked their mother. Chike was sitting in his dining drinking coffee when his phone rang. The voice on the other end was frantic. "Sir, your company, there is fire. It's burning. The entire warehouse gone. It's spreading." He barely had time to react before another call came in. Ugochi's phone buzzed with a message. "Your art gallery is gone. Everything is gone. It's burning to the ground. Please come quick." The both siblings were shocked and devastated. Suddenly, the mansion was also engulfed in flames. They didn't know how the fire started. They stood in horror as they watched their empire crumble before their eyes. The mansion, their fortune, their businesses, all gone in an instant. They didn't know where the fire had come from, but they didn't need to. The damage had been done. Frantically, they grabbed what little they could and ran from the mansion, barely escaping the fire that was consuming everything they had worked so hard for. With nowhere else to go, they rushed to their mother's compound. When Chike and Ugochi arrived at the compound, the scene before them was like something out of a nightmare. Their mother was on the ground screaming in pain, while the pastor prayed fervently over her. The tenants had gathered, watching in shocked silence. "What's happening?" Ugochi cried, rushing to her mother's side. Amelia, her face contorted with pain and fear, looked up at her children. I'll confess. I'll tell you everything. Please make it stop. Make it stop, please," she sobbed. The pastor's voice thundered as he commanded her, "Confess! Confess and release the darkness." Through the screams, Amelia began to confess, her words stumbling out in a rush. "It was all for you. For you both. I made a deal with Queen Agnes, the leader of the witches' Coven. She promised me that you would be successful if I sacrificed one life every month. I turned into a cat. I killed one of the tenants every month. I did it to make you rich, to make you powerful. I didn't know what else to do. I couldn't let you suffer like I did." The compound went deathly silent. The tenants stood in stunned disbelief, observing the horror of her words. They could not move, could not speak. Suddenly, Ada emerged from the crowd, her face pale with shock and anger. "So it was you, Auntie Amelia. You killed my mother," she screamed, her voice shaking with fury. "You pretended to comfort me, to console me, while you were the one who killed her. You killed my mother, you witch!" The room exploded with murmurs and gasps. The truth was out, and the weight of it was unbearable. Chike and Ugochi stood frozen, unable to process the confession. Their mother, the woman who had sacrificed everything for them, had committed these unspeakable acts. The price of their success was darker than they could have ever imagined. The tenants in the compound had gathered around Amelia, their faces twisted in anger and disbelief. They spat on her, called her names, and unleashed the fury they had been building inside them for months. "You wicked woman! How could you do this?" one tenant shouted. "You are terrible, evil, a witch killing innocent people," another cried. Amelia's shoulders shook as she fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "Please, forgive me. I didn't know. I only wanted my children to be successful. The money from this compound, it was too little, too small. I just wanted them to go to good schools, to have a future. Please forgive me," she sobbed. "Forgive you? My foot." Ada spat, her voice sharp, laced with pain and rage. The weight of her sins proved too much. With a final shuddering breath, Amelia collapsed to the ground and died. The compound fell silent. Shock and whispers rippled through the crowd, some still in disbelief at the truth they had just witnessed. The pastor knelt beside her and prayed softly, "May God forgive you and receive your soul in the bosom of the Lord." He turned to Chike and Ugochi, who were crying bitterly, standing helplessly to the side. Shame and sorrow clouded their eyes. They had grown up under the shadow of their mother's choices, benefiting from the cursed riches she had earned at a terrible price. "You must bury your mother as soon as possible," the pastor instructed gently, his voice steady. "The deed is done. Now you must move on and learn from her mistakes. Pray, repent, and let God guide your lives." Suddenly, the air around them grew cold, and the sky darkened unnaturally. Queen Agnes, the powerful leader of the witches' Coven, appeared before them, her presence terrifying and imposing. Her voice rumbled like thunder. "Her body is mine. She belongs to me. Give her to me immediately or suffer the consequences." The pastor stepped forward without fear. "Her body belongs to God. She is a child of God. You have no power over her." Queen Agnes laughed cruelly, her voice echoing through the compound. "Which God are you talking about? I gave her children riches. By right, her body belongs to me. Give her to me now or face my wrath." The pastor raised his hands and began praying with authority, invoking the name of God. Light burst forth from him, overwhelming the shadows around Queen Agnes. She screamed, her power no match for the divine authority of God. In a final clash of dark and holy power, the Queen of Witches shrieked in defeat. Her temple was destroyed, the spirits within scattered, and she disappeared into the void. The compound returned to the calm, the evil lifted. After the battle, Amelia's children recounted the horrors they had endured, the sudden fires, the loss of their wealth, and the mysterious deaths in their mother's compound. The pastor listened and spoke with quiet wisdom. "The gifts from the devil never last," he said. "The riches and success you had came from evil." The Bible teaches us, "Render therefore to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. What you received from the devil has been collected. But if you seek blessings from God, they will last forever. Work hard, pray and trust in him." With nowhere else to go, Chike and Ugochi stayed in their mother's compound. The pastor cleansed the house and the surrounding apartments, and slowly peace returned to the tenants. Though some still harbored resentment towards the siblings, the hostility faded over time. They could see that the children were innocent in all this. Chike and Ugochi worked tirelessly, praying, studying and serving God. Within 2 years, God blessed them again, this time with wealth and success that was pure, lasting and untainted. Their prosperity endured because it came directly from God, not from a dark path. The story of Amelia Okafor teaches us a powerful lesson. Success gained through evil or shortcuts is temporary and destructive. Amelia's sacrifices brought her children wealth and status, but they came at an unimaginable cost: the lives of innocent people, her soul's torment, and ultimately her deaths. Real blessings that last and bring true peace can only come from God, and they are earned through faith, hard work, and living rightly. This tale reminds us that shortcuts through dark means may seem tempting in desperation, but the consequences are inevitable and often far worse than the problems we try to solve. Gifts from the devil are fleeting. Gifts from God last for eternity, and no human or spirit can take them away. And so, the legacy of Amelia Okafor became a cautionary tale. Wealth and success achieved through evil vanish, but blessings earned through faith, integrity, and God's grace endure forever. Thank you so much for watching. We truly appreciate your time and support. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to hit that like button, share it with your friends, and leave a comment below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on our latest content. Your support means the world to us. Thank you for being part of our community. See you next time. Bye!